so glad to be with you. I hope you had a great first Bible study this morning. Woo! Yep. Talking about that centurion. My name is Erna Hackett, and I am the director of worship for this conference. And I and my team have spent almost a year getting ready for our time together. And I want to share a few thoughts about how you can enter into musical worship while you're here. Like Tom said last night, the theme of the conference is, what story will you tell? And for us as a worship team, the question is, what story will you sing? So I grew up in a tiny Korean immigrant church. I'm Korean and white. I'm representing for all y'all biracial, multiracial people out there. Here she is, representing. My little tiny Korean church taught me about community, about sacrifice, about commitment. And in high school, I joined Young Life, and I went to a giant white Presbyterian church, which taught me about starting at 11 and ending promptly at 12:15. But, come on, little jokes, we can all be friends. Presbyterians like to be on time. But they also introduced me to the love of Jesus and the power of his resurrection in a new way. And then I had some friends invite me to their church, and I went to a black church for the first time. And I discovered a whole new approach to musical worship. And then I went to La Viña, which is the Spanish-speaking vineyard church. And I saw a brother take a horn. I don't mean like a trumpet, like a horn, blow it, and take a lap around the room in the name of victory. And I was like, I'm learning some stuff right now. And what I learned was, I began to see that one culture or one church could not contain and express everything about God. But every culture was telling a beautiful and unique story about Jesus. What I love about Jesus and the story of Jesus across the world and over time is that as different cultures encounter the living God, they embrace and reflect and celebrate certain aspects of his character. And then that intersection of culture and gospel express itself in theology, in prayer, in architecture, musical worship. So we've taken time to receive songs from brothers and sisters all over the world. And the reason we've taken time to prepare is because we want to do more than sing each other's songs. We think of it as a moment to enter into each other's stories. So we want to learn about the history and experiences that shaped the songs that we're singing. So over the course of this week, you're going to be hearing from different friends of mine on this team who are going to share some of their culture and some of their story and invite you to be a part of what God is doing in their context. And I don't want us to do a thing where we take other people's songs and we consume them. I want us to sing them and be transformed by them. So when we sing a song from Jordan or the Pacific Islands or from the Asian American context or from down the street in Ferguson, it's a chance to celebrate the way God's already at work and a chance to enter into a story. Now, everyone's going to feel at home at some point during musical worship, okay? But everyone's also going to feel uncomfortable at some point. And I just want you to know that I don't consider it my job as your worship leader to make you feel comfortable. I do consider it my job to help you get to the presence of God. But he might be hanging out someplace you haven't been before. And I would just want us all to assume that maybe we haven't experienced every aspect of the manifold glory of the living God. And we might need to go some new places. Amen? Let's go some new places. So, the other thing I would say is, you feel uncomfortable? Good. You're at a missions conference, people. It's all about being cross-cultural and displacing yourself so you can enter into a missionary posture here, a posture of humility and teachability and wanting to enter into another culture right here without going anywhere. You can start a cross-cultural journey by how you enter into musical worship. Amen? So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm just going to say one more thing before I ask my sister Jessica to share, which is sometimes when we talk about culture and race, when people start sharing their story, like for example, yesterday when I was sharing the story about facing a task, you guys all leaned in, right? I felt you like, ooh, right? You know that, when you lean into the story. But sometimes when we start talking about race, people go like this. And I want to ask you, as we talk about culture and race, can we have a posture that leans in and listens to one another? Can we be that family amongst each other? Let's try that. All right, so this morning, I'm going to introduce Jessica. She is on staff in Canada, and she's going to be talking to us about the Asian North American worship experience. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Hi, Urbana. As Erna said, my name is Jessica, and I'm on staff with InterVarsity in Canada. And so we learned last night that actually Urbana is co-hosted by InterVarsity USA and InterVarsity and JBU Canada. Actually, the first Urbana was held in 1946 in Toronto, where I'm originally from.
A lot of Canadian pride going on right here. That's what I hear.
Yeah. So this morning, as I'm talking about Asian American worship, I'm actually talking about the Asian North American worship experience. So the Asian North American worship experience is diverse, depending on your generation, what ethnicity you are, what language you speak. Many Asian Americans have been here for lots of generations, but like many others, the story of God in my life revolves a lot and is shaped a lot by the immigrant experience. So my parents, they immigrated to Canada with their families when they were teenagers, and so my siblings and I grew up going to church in an English-speaking service, while a Korean service was happening elsewhere in the same church. And so growing up as a Korean Canadian meant that I was growing up in between the tension of two different cultures, which at times was confusing and dissonant. But as I've come to learn and to cherish, it's also made my experiences much more rich and beautiful. Church in the Asian American context is a place for us to come and worship, but it's also a place for us to come and find home and belonging and a supportive community, especially for newcomers to the country. It's a place for us to find community with whom we can celebrate our unique culture. So for me, that might be speaking in Konglish, which is a mix of Korean and English, or eating a Korean food feast after service, or having to take Korean language classes before Sunday school. And we know that without the hours of hanging out after service together, our worship experience is not complete. So later today, we may not actually be singing songs written by Asian Americans, but songs are only one part of our worship experience. Asian American values also greatly shape our worship and how we worship. Values such as giving and showing honor to one another, sacrificial love, being family-centered. That's why we love to center worship around who God is, that He's perfect and holy and worthy of our worship and devotion, that He's an intimate and loving Father who sees us and knows us deeply, and that He's the one that showed the greatest example of sacrificial love through His Son, Jesus. So this morning, after we hear again from Dr. Fung, we'd love to invite you to share in the story of God in the Asian American culture and the Asian American church as we worship together.